Welcome to Discovering God's Will. This is a 5-part Bible study series that will help you to discover God's will for your life. As part of this study, we're going to help you to answer some key questions. Questions like, how can I discover God's will for my life? How can I be sure of God's guidance in my decisions? Or, God, what do you want me to do? Practically all believers have asked questions like these at some point in their lives, and this study will help you to gain more knowledge and a better understanding of how to discern God's will in questions like these. Throughout this study, we're going to have a key perspective that's going to dominate our thoughts. We will look at God's will as a way of life and not as an emergency support system. We don't want to just come to God and seek His will when the crises happen. We're not just looking to God to rescue us from our own struggles and pitfalls and sins and shortcomings. No, we're seeking God's will as a relationship, as a way of living, as an ongoing dynamic interaction that we live day to day. It's a way of life. And that's our key dominant perspective as we go through this study, that God's will is a way of life, not just an emergency support system. So what are we going to discover during this 5-part series? Well, let's take an overview real quick. First, we're going to look at the priority of God's will and why it's so important that we know God's will in our lives. Secondly, we're going to look at the practice of God's will, certain things we can do to help discover God's will for ourselves. Third, certain prerequisites for guidance, some things that we have to have right in our relationship with God in order to be truly in contact with Him and to know His will and the direction we should go in. Fourth, principles of guidance. We're going to discover certain principles that can help us to better discern how God is speaking to us and how He is leading us. And fifthly, we're going to look at poor conceptions of God's will. We're going to look at some of the most common misunderstandings of God's will and seek to correct those. So that's the 5 things we're going to cover during this 5-part Bible study series.